Okay, so are ghosts real? That's the question we're diving into today. And wow, you've given us so much to work with here.
Yeah.
We've got this pasted text thing and some fascinating books by Radford, Wiseman, Young, Rees, Davies. Centuries of ghost stories, scientific skepticism, real-world cases. Where do we even begin?
Well, one thing that always strikes me is just how global this whole ghost story thing is. It's not just like one culture's thing.
Right.
I mean, think about it. Ancient Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, every culture has them. Tales about spirits and all.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you hear ghost stories as a kid. I did. You probably did too. It's like this, yeah, this universal thread in human experience. But what's interesting is you've included some sources that get into like specific cultural examples, right?
Oh,
Like the
absolutely.
Philippines, right? With their
Yes.
white ladies and a swang.
Chess swang. Yeah, those shape-shifting creature.
Yeah, exactly. So are those stories just reflecting like anxieties that are unique to that culture?
I think a lot of times they do. Like the Aswang, for instance. It kind of embodies this fear of hidden dangers, the vulnerability of the living. And then you've got, like, Mexico, La Llorona.
Oh yeah, La Llorona, the weeping woman.
Yeah, searching for her drowned children. Guilt, loss, fear of losing loved ones. It's all there.
Yeah. It's so interesting. They're not just like, trying to scare you. They're exploring these deeper themes, these human anxieties. But, okay, so we've got these stories, and they're everywhere, right? But what about the science? You included a lot of skeptical viewpoints in the sources. So if these stories are so widespread, wouldn't we have, like, hard proof by now?
Oh, yeah, that's what the skeptics are saying. Like Radford Wiseman, they often try to explain these experiences in more natural terms, like sleep paralysis. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, yeah.
You're kind of half awake, but you can't move. And you might feel like there's something else in the room with you.
It's terrifying.
Oh, absolutely terrifying. But it's a physiological thing, not necessarily a ghost.
So our own brains are playing tricks on us?
In a way. Yeah.
That's pretty wild. I know some skeptics talk about carbon monoxide poisoning, too. What's that all about?
Yeah, so carbon monoxide, that's a tricky one. It's odorless, right?
Yeah.
And it can cause hallucinations, feelings of dread, even that sense that someone's there, a presence.
Huh.
So you can imagine, right, if you're in a house with like a faulty furnace or something, you start experiencing these things, it'd be pretty easy to jump to a paranormal conclusion.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And some researchers even think that might have happened a lot throughout history. Misdiagnosis, thinking it's a ghost when it's really carbon monoxide.
Wow. Okay, so sometimes there's a real explanation, a dangerous one, in fact, behind what people are calling hauntings. But obviously, not every weird experience can be dismissed so easily, right?
Right.
And that's where the Enfield poltergeist case comes in. And you know what? This one really does make you think. So what's your take, having read about it from both the skeptical and the, well, paranormal side of things?
Enfield. Yeah, that one's a classic. England, 1977. It all comes down to interpretation, really. I mean, you've got skeptics who say, well, maybe the girls involved were just pulling pranks, or got caught up in all the attention.
Right.
But then you have people who look at the same evidence, objects moving seemingly on their own and say, no, this was something else entirely. This was the real deal.
Yeah. It's a tough one to figure out. And, speaking of trying to get evidence, you gave us some information about EVP recordings. That's where people try to capture spirit voices, right?
Uh-huh.
Using like audio recorders. And then there's EMF detectors, electromagnetic fields, which some believe can sense spirits. What do you think about all that?
That's where things get controversial. A lot of skeptics say, sure, those devices might be picking up electromagnetic fields, maybe temperature changes, but that doesn't automatically mean it's a ghost.
Right.
It's the interpretation, and they say it's often too subjective.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of scientific rigor in a lot of these investigations.
So where does all this leave us? We've got these ancient stories, we've got possible explanations, and then tools that might not be as reliable as people think.
Well, it leaves us with some pretty big questions, right? Like, if ghosts do exist, what does that mean for consciousness? What happens after we die? Does it change our whole understanding of reality?
Yeah.
You included some of Carl Jung's work, and he talked about the collective unconscious, this idea of a shared pool of images and archetypes. I mean, could that explain why we see ghost stories in so many cultures?
Yeah, it's a lot to ponder. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the mysteries they represent, they really do capture the imagination.
Absolutely. And maybe that fascination, that's what's really telling us something. Maybe it's about our need to understand the unknown, to find meaning beyond the tangible world. What do you think?
That's a great question. We'd love to hear what you think. Let us know in the comments. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
Until next time.